Technology moves fast, and now so can you. Discover Polestar, the all-electric performance brand vehicles redefining how we drive. Precision engineering, minimalist design, and software that evolves with you. Experience it at Holden Group in Norwich and Bury St Edmunds, or let us bring the test drive to your door. Proud sponsors of the Cambridge Tech Podcast. Polestar, electric performance redefined. Discover at holdengroup.co.uk/Polestar. Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So James, how was your week?
It was a good week. I finally caught up with my backlog,
Woohoo.
So that was good. Yes, so I'm very pleased with that. So apologies to everyone that's been waiting for me to get back to them. But yeah, lots of great initiatives underway. Really feels like a new year is hitting us hard. So loads of new community groups coming to Bradfield. We've got office hours from Google coming up soon. And there's so much interest in what's going on in Cambridge. Is a collective noun for tours a deluge? I don't know, but we've been really inundated with requests for tours and, visiting groups coming into Cambridge to come and see what's happening in the cluster, which is awesome. So great to see the interest levels are so high. And this week, looking forward to spending a few days in the Norwich tech ecosystem.
What are you doing there, James?
A couple of events. There's the HackEd final, which, I went to last year in Norwich, and also we ran one in Cambridge last year as part of Tech Week. And I'm going to NorDev, which is like the largest software development conference in East Anglia. So I'm sure I'll have some content for the podcast off the back of those two little trips. How about you?
I have to say, I'm loving the fact that we're both getting about. I mean, like you say, it's buoyant in Cambridge, but you're off to Norwich. I've been to a couple of other university cities too. I feel the year is very, very positive. I had a great week last week, like you. I actually had quite a bit of time on my hands, which is a very unusual thing to happen. And I seem to do a lot of mentoring of people, and not just people in the tech ecosystem, but people who run businesses supporting the tech ecosystem. And I just really enjoy doing that. People ask me for advice, and I always give the advice and then tell them to take it with a pinch of salt, because obviously I don't necessarily have a filter. But I think it's really positive. There's a lot of people trying to do great things, so I like getting about and talking to people.
I was browsing LinkedIn and I was shocked to see a very youthful student photograph of Faye Holland appear in my feed.
Why
so
would you be shocked? Why would you be shocked? I did used to be young.
The only thing missing was the traffic cone on your head.
Oh, brilliant.
So what about that news?
Yes, so I'm really pleased. I've had obviously a long-standing relationship with ARU. I actually went and did my degree at what was Cambridge College of Arts and Technology, which then evolved to ARU. And I've worked with Gary Packham and his team on and off over the years. And so last week we announced that I was going to be one of a series of entrepreneurs in residence for them, which is a new program that they've put in place. They've basically just had one EIR, David Bell, for the last few years, and they've now got a few more of us involved. So I'm super excited. I get to speak to lots of different people. ARU is a very diverse, inclusive university. So I think they're actually going to keep me on my toes as well.
I'm sure that'll bring us loads of interesting stories for the podcast.
Yeah, indeed. And keep tuned. There's more announcements to come. I'm doing like this really interesting little drip feed. So yeah, it's not over yet, James.
Can't wait.
Yeah, but anyway, let's crack on with the main news. There are two pieces from us, first of all. A transatlantic alliance between Ohio-based giant Avery Dennison and Pragmatic Semiconductor in Cambridge is set to revolutionise a key market. Avery Dennison is already a global leader in materials science and digital identification solutions. Now it's set to enhance its near-field communication inlay portfolio with a flexible integrated circuit product line, NFC Connect, from Pragmatic. This first market integration on a mass scale will deliver secure smartphone tap interactions with consumer packaged goods, enhancing digital brand experiences and enabling authentication and compliance initiatives such as digital product passports.
Great. And more news around material science. Clua Labs, who are transforming food packaging from its base at Epicenter in Haverhill, has raised £8 million to accelerate the rollout of its technology across global retail supply chains. The investment will support wider commercial deployment of Clua Labs' packaging solution, which is designed to slow food spoilage, extend shelf life and significantly reduce waste. So congratulations to them.
Indeed. And then I had a quick catch up last week with Connor Butler about the Local Skills Improvement Plan. Hi Connor, so for those that don't know, can you briefly explain what the Local Skills Improvement Plan, or LSIP, is and the role it plays in our region?
So the Local Skills Improvement Plan is a project being delivered by the Cambridgeshire Chamber of Commerce in collaboration with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, and it exists to bridge the gap between employers and skills to ensure that we've got the people that we need for the future.
So how do you need businesses to get involved? And specifically, you've got an opportunity right now to get businesses to help improve skills provision. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we are currently in the process of preparing the Local Skills Improvement Plan for the next 3 years. So there's currently a call out to businesses to engage with us through a number of ways to ensure that your voice is heard in this plan. That can be either through completing our ongoing skills survey, from engaging in one-to-one interviews with members of the team, or completing our Video Ask program, which will enable us to capture your views and ensure that your industry's views are captured in the next round of the Local Skills Improvement Plan.
And how do they get to that information?
They can get to that by going to www.cambridgeshirechamber.co.uk/contact and completing our contact us form. A member of the team will be in touch with you swiftly.
So we talk about skills a lot on the podcast. It's a really important area for local businesses to be contributing to, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's a really important area for business to be contributing to, because ultimately we don't want to have a provision for local skills that doesn't match up with the needs of local business. So we need to hear from local businesses about what your needs are now, what they're going to be in the future, so that we can ensure that the local providers are giving you the courses that you need to train up the people that you want.
Yeah, it's great to hear businesses can get actively involved in influencing what they need from their future workforce. And also, you regular listeners will hear that we've been promoting our new voicemail service, so you can get involved in the show. And we have not one, but 2 voice memos this week. So here you go.
Hi listeners, I'm Marco, I'm Head of Content at Tech Nation. I was on the Cambridge Tech podcast a few episodes ago talking with James about all things UK AI, and now I have a request for you. Now listen, it is a survey request, but please don't press pause. Each year at Tech Nation, we survey startup founders and operators across the UK, and we feed those insights directly back to our contacts in government at the Treasury and Number 10. Last year, we made sure founder priorities were reflected in the UK's industrial strategy. We secured tech commitments in the spending review. We triggered ISA reform and scrapped the proposed exit tax. Now we're doing it again. We're focused on UK AI and how it's impacting your business. So please join the 1,000 plus startup operators who fill out our survey. It literally takes 2 minutes, and you're also in with the chance to win £1,000, a support package for your business, and an invitation to our prestigious Future 50 forum. You can find the survey link in the show notes and on the homepage of our website, technation.io. That's one word, technation.io.
Hi, I'm Jen Richardson from Project Cambridge. On the 12th of April this year, we're organising a charity skydive in aid of Arthur Rank Hospice. Now, we already have quite a few awesome people from the Cambridge tech scene taking part, but we'd love more of you to join us. If you'd like to jump, check out our website, projectcambridge.co.uk, to see how you can get involved. And you can also find out how to donate there as well. We're looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, it'd be great to see some more people joining the skydive team. I was asked last year, but it was a hard no from me. I said I'll go and make them cups of tea and, pat the backs and celebrate when they've done it. But yeah, it's just a hard no for me. But I'm sure many of our listeners are much braver than I am. If you didn't catch the call to action in those 3 pieces, we'll put all the links in the show notes.
And now to today's episode, where we're back into the world of quantum with Ed Wood of NuQuantum.
Hi, Ed. Welcome to Cambridge Tech Podcast.
Fantastic. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's start with an introduction to your good self and your journey to NuQuantum,
We
please.
all go on a journey these days, don't we? So I am Ed. I have a fancy sounding title of VP of Product at NuQuantum, which really means for me kind of understanding the market and then trying to translate it into problems that we can solve, so that we can turn it into products that can make money. My background is not quantum at all. If you scratch enough layers of paint off, there's an engineer here. So my background is kind of classical communication, kind of system engineering stuff. I've worked for companies in and around Cambridge all my adult life. So good companies, bad companies, big companies, small companies. My recent career has been in hardware cryptography. And I was an early employee at a company called Encipher in Cambridge, founded by a guy called Alex van Summeren. 15 years in hardware cryptography, then a few adventures in startups, back into cryptography. And then I was introduced to Carmen, CEO of NuQuantum, about 5.5, 6 years ago.
Wonderful. It feels like we mention NuQuantum every week on the show in the news. You must be doing something well.
Yeah.
But for listeners that aren't familiar, maybe you could just tell us the story of how NuQuantum was founded and what gap you're filling in the quantum market.
It has been a journey. I think it's not too much of a cliche. So when I joined the business, it was headed in a particular direction. It had some IP, some kind of know-how around manipulating individual photons, so a single photon source and a single photon detector. And these were headed to service what you can call a quantum security markets. So there's various kind of interesting, clever technology around making really good random number generators based on quantum phenomena and making communication links that have or can promise very high security. So that was the direction. The first piece of work that I did when I was employed was to really have an analysis of those markets. This is interesting technology, but the analysis we came to was that we weren't going to be able to build the really important, thriving business that we wanted servicing those markets. So long story short, did I think quite a decent bit of work again, looking at the market, and found this gap that we perceived around making quantum networks for the very specific problem of linking quantum computers together. So the promise is that the network can facilitate the creation of a bigger, more useful quantum computer. And that means maybe taking away the risk around building such an interesting and useful thing, or maybe even make it appear a little bit earlier.
And this is all around the scaling of the technology. Is that correct?
Quantum computing is, one of my little phrases is reassuringly hard. It's really hard to make a quantum computer. Whatever technique you pursue, there are different limits of scale depending on the kind of technology that you choose, but pretty much every modality hits a point of scale. So these entities that make a quantum computer useful are called qubits, and you can't physically assemble enough of these qubits in a monolithic machine to really start attacking the valuable problems that people once solved. So our thesis is that it's a bit maybe quite analogous to classical computing. In a classical computing data center or high-performance computing data center, the networking is the sort of unsung hero. People think about the hero devices from NVIDIA. Those devices are useless unless you have a very efficient way to connect them together. And we think that pattern that comes from classical computing, that's evolved in classical computing, will apply to the quantum world. The technology is very different, the science is very different, but basically networking to knit processes together to make a bigger, more useful service.
I mean, it must be really fascinating operating in a very nascent market. And you're not only is quantum nascent, but you're solving future problems with quantum, right? That must be a really interesting place to be.
Yeah, I mean, quantum networking as a thing has existed as a concept for quite a while. I think our angle is this focus on using it to solve this very particular problem. Since we went on this journey, since we kind of did this pivot for the business, the market has acknowledged generally that yes, networking is going to be significant, and yes, networking is going to be necessary, essential to being able to create big, useful computers.
Before we go into the technology in a little bit more detail, Ed, I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about the pivot and what that was actually like. You're 5 years in, it was founded in 2018 as a company.
Yep.
So going through these pivots in such a nascent market has got to be really challenging. Or was it not? Was it just there's so many things, variables that can change? It was just a really natural thing to do.
I think it was necessary. And in hindsight, I think we wouldn't be the company we are in the place we are at the moment and with the opportunities we have if we had not have made that pivot. kind of became obvious as a function of the market work that we did. So again, it's not to disparage these really interesting technologies, but the quantum security kind of applications, again, really interesting stuff, very clever, but they kind of fail a test of an immediacy, an urgency in terms of requiring the solution. And again, we wish folks well pursuing this task, and these are interesting problems. But in my experience, way before my life in the quantum world, you've got to be solving problems for which there's a real urgency around acquiring the solution. It's easy to make things that people will kind of say, oh, this is very clever, and I see how this could be kind of useful to my business. But those kind of warm, kind words are deceiving. You need to be proposing something, be on the journey to create something, that there has to be a real urgency about requiring the solution.
So, as Faye said, let's maybe spend a little bit of time going deeper on the technology and the products, because this isn't theoretical. You've launched products, right? So you've got your quantum networking unit. So tell us what that product does and where that fits in the quantum stack.
So starting with the qubits. So the first thing that we offer in our stack is around making an interface to quantum computers. So this is a technology. We've got lots of three-letter acronyms, I apologize, but this thing that we want to call a qubit photon interface, QPI, and this is the interface to a quantum computer. This is in itself a reassuringly hard problem. We've made fantastic progress in terms of getting the efficiency of this interface towards something that's really useful. So interface is kind of base camp. You've got to be able to basically plug into a quantum computer, and this QPI is how we do that. We then want to interconnect or create this resource to allow quantum computation to happen between computers. So we need to have installed this interface in two adjacent computers. So imagine two racks inside a data center. We then need to orchestrate the delivery of photons, individual photons from each of these two qubits in these two discrete machines, and then into a fiber optic cable. And then we pass them through to this device that we call a quantum networking unit, or QNU. And it's in this device that we can generate the entanglement that is the resource that connects the computers. And I won't go into all of the gory technical detail, but this, again, reassuringly hard problems inside the quantum networking unit. I need to be able to switch between the different computers that I want to connect. So I need very low loss photonic switching. So every photon is precious, to misquote Monty Python. I need to collide these two photons, intersect them on a beam splitter, and then I need some exquisitely sensitive photon detectors to get a pattern of clicks. And I'm going to do my castanet clicks here that then indicates that we've created this resource of entanglement between the two computers. So that's first bit of essential technology is efficient interface. Second bit is around creating this entanglement, this resource of entanglement. And then the third piece of the business is beautiful mathematics around quantum error correction. These qubits are sensitive little creatures and you need to error correct them. And we have a really super high quality quantum error correction, a theory team that's come up with some really nice patterns, some codes to be able to distribute this quantum error correction across this pool of computers, this resource that we assemble. So reassuringly hard problem, but really valuable problem in terms of the interface to computers. We then need an infrastructure that will create entanglement, and this can be informed. This has kind of helped our understanding of what we need to do can be helped by the quantum error correction work.
And I believe as part of this solution, you're partnering with CERN's and using their White Rabbit timing technology. Are you the first partner with CERN's?
We think we're the first partner that's modified. There are folks that use this CERN White Rabbit technology, but we are contributing to the project. Just about a year ago, we were delighted. We were invited to be the keynote speaker at a CERN event. So we got to go to CERN. I got to go, we had kind of VIP treatment. We got to go and see the Large Hadron Collider go into the underground cathedral to technology as a function of the ring. It's fantastic to be working with CERN. It's an amazing organization. Just a really nice example of how technology developed for a particular problem. So CERN have a problem of all of the incredible detectors they have around that get this scatter. When you smash particles together, you get this scatter, which is picked up by this enormous array of detectors. If you're going to make use of that enormous amount of data, you need to be very sure about what events occurred when. So you need very good timing synchronization between these detectors. So that's the reason that CERN developed it. So we have a similar problem, similar but different problem. So when we think ahead to networking a big load of quantum computers, the same kind of challenge around orchestration and timing and the need for exquisite precision about when you trigger things to happen and when you detect things, we have the same problem.
Just continuing that theme of collaboration, Ed, I know you've historically always worked on lots of collaborations or grant-funded projects and those types of things. It's actually quite interesting because James ran the Trinity Bradfield Prize a few weeks ago, and Phase Shift, who were one of the winners there, they mentioned you and Wave in their pitching competition.
Yep.
We also had Quantinuum and Riverlane have been on the podcast and we're on the same slides.
Yep.
And I know that there's this plan that Cambridge is going to be the capital of quantum in the UK.
Yep.
So my question is, how important are the collaborations as with CERN and with other quantum companies to help the quantum industry to really grow? And secondly, what part do you think Cambridge itself has to play in that?
Collaboration is essential. We've benefited from and enjoyed collaborations with a bunch of leading companies, a bunch of university groups in the UK. It's essential. Cambridge is a fantastic place to work. It's a fantastic place to start a business from. We benefit from a really close relationship with the university. We have agreements to access some of the university facilities. And we're lucky to have such strong and famous quantum neighbours in Cambridge, our friends at Riverlane, just down the road. So yeah, Cambridge is super significant, but as is Oxford, as are a bunch of other academic centres in Glasgow, in Scotland. And yeah, ultimately, this is a collective endeavour. So no one company, probably no one country is going to dominate this. This is going to, again, if you go to an existing cloud or high-performance data center, the equipment, the hardware and the software comes from lots of different companies woven together to make highly valuable, highly resilient solutions. And I think we're on the same journey with quantum.
You talk about it's happening in multiple cities in the UK, and it's not just the UK, obviously. We're not doing this in isolation. We've heard from a lot of guests recently about this trend towards sovereign technology and all those kinds of things. Where would you rank the UK right now? And I guess part of the question you can't avoid is the government's role in backing quantum.
I think the UK punches above its weight in terms of size of country or maybe by GDP. I think the role of governments, of national governments, is super significant. Where we've got to as a business has been supported by the government and the government of different regimes but what's been consistent has been the focus on quantum, the faith that this is valuable technology for the country and for the world, and that the money that's spent generally it seems to be spent wisely. You can pour money into hard problems, but you need to be selective in terms of pouring the money into the hard problems. The solution to that problem is actually valuable. So you can get distracted. Even in quantum, there are kind of reassuringly hard problems that don't yield business value or don't yield maybe as much business value. We think the particular domain we're in around networking for computing is really an area where the UK could really distinguish itself. And we are already competing on a world stage, and we believe we can have a really strong position in the ecosystem around quantum computing in the future.
So in your view, Ed, what do you think are the outstanding remaining technical challenges and hurdles to getting us to where we need to be with the quantum industry?
The quantum industry is a really broad field. There are developments in quantum, with inverted commas, that I'm really not qualified to talk so much about. I think in the field of computing, where we have some expertise and the field that we're addressing, there are leading research in the UK. There are companies producing really good qubits. Some of them have been acquired by non-UK based companies. You can think of what that as you will. But again, our position is that there genuinely is this gap in terms of networking for compute. Quantum computing is this fascinating race between different modalities, completely different ways of doing computing, with huge amounts of government money, huge amounts of private money. But across all of that, we seem to be still operating with kind of space around us, and that's super exciting.
Yeah. And when do you think it's going to start really becoming a reality?
Quantum computing, maybe 5 years ago, you could have waved accusations at quantum computing that this was always like a bit like kind of fusion. This was always a thing that was going to promise, it's always 10 years away, it's always 10 years away. Materially, things have changed in quantum computing over even just the last couple of years. We've now got multiple companies in the world producing really good qubits. So the metrics for these things are the fidelity, the quality of interconnection they have between them. You're now getting companies with really impressive and really useful quality of interconnection between qubits. A whole bunch of work going on around the world around quantum error correction, and there's really interesting and exciting progress around quantum error correction. So 2 of 3 things have materially got better. The last piece of the jigsaw is not quality, but quantity. If you want to solve these really hard but valuable problems around material science or chemistry or whatever it might be, you need a lot of qubits. You need 1 million, maybe 10 million physical qubits, which is orders of magnitude above what has been assembled today. So again, we're biased. I'm from NuQuantum. We're the company making this networking. But this is the last piece of the jigsaw, is the assembly or the pattern towards getting to a really significant number of physical qubits, which with error correction produce a smaller number of logical qubits, which are the things which actually are useful for the computation. So quality, check. Error correction, huge amounts of progress. Quantity is the last piece. And again, our thesis around networking modular systems to get to that scale, and also starting to be informed by the, again, patterns from classical computing in terms of resilience. So modern data center, lots and lots of processors, lots and lots of compute resource, but knitted together to be useful, to be resilient, to be available by networking. Very different physics, but we think the patterns from classical networking kind of apply to what we're trying to do.
I mentioned you're very newsworthy, and one of the biggest stories recently has been your Series A round. So firstly, congratulations.
Thank you.
I guess secondly, what does that enable? What does that unlock?
So it gives us the money to recruit more of the super smart folks that we need. You need to cover a lot of different technical disciplines. And some of these disciplines are the pool of folks that we're trying to address in the world is actually quite small. So money to get the best talent for the specialist skills that we need, money for facilities, growing pains in terms of needing office space and lab space. So it gives us money towards that. And also kit. So again, if you had any exposure to quantum technology, pretty much all of the modalities have need for very specialist hardware. In our case, it's a particularly exquisite laser system. So we need very high quality lasers on very specific wavelengths to direct and control.
And one of the things that funding also gave was this additional amount of funding from the Spanish government.
Yep.
So you've now got a presence, obviously, in Cambridge, in Spain, and in the US, in Los Angeles.
Yep.
What's it like having the 2 locations and now knowing you're going to set up a third?
Our US presence is, we've got a BD presence, but we're looking to grow that. And Los Angeles is maybe surprising to some folks. There's quite a lot of quantum stuff that happens in Los Angeles. So that's actually a good place to be. Spain, super exciting. I mean, getting a foothold into mainland Europe, getting potentially access. There's a really thriving photonic scene in Spain, but it's also a springboard or access to the wider European market. And Europe, America, Japan are where eventually our end customers will be.
I was just going to add then, it must also be quite nice and serendipitous for Carmen to have that presence in Spain as well.
Yeah, I think it's really pleasing. The kind of vibrancy we have with the people inside the business is one of our secret weapons. And the fact that I haven't actually added it up, but I think Spanish must be the second most common language we have inside. I mean, lots of people will have Spanish as a second language or as a first language. So that's, again, really nice that we've got this kind of vibrant international, multinational crowd of people representing these different technical disciplines. Just making a coffee and hearing the conversations across the disciplines, a quantum theorist talking to a mechanical engineer about X, Y, or Z, that's just super fun. That makes it enjoyable to be at work, to see that kind of vibrancy.
Yeah, and it's always blown my mind that quantum computing in native language is complicated enough, or when you're doing it in a second language, it's always a huge challenge. But let's carry on with that conversation actually about the team and how you've built such a diverse team and what that actually means, because you've got to have that in such a complicated space like this, I guess.
Yeah, so I think there's two kind of dimensions of diversity. There's the diversity of the technical work that we need to do. And I think last time we added it up, there's 9 different technical disciplines we need to stand up and all need to work together to make solutions to these reassuringly hard problems. So that's the first kind of a base layer of diversity. The second one is really ensuring and celebrating that we've got very different human beings that represent those different technical disciplines. That's a superpower. You've got to work at it. But I think that vibrancy from very different people coming from different cultures with different values, with different experience, it's a multiplier of productivity. So technical diversity, we absolutely need. Cultural diversity, we've worked hard on and are proud of the kind of stats that we have. And I think the combination of these two things makes there's some sort of fusion that makes it super productive.
Now, I just have to ask you one more question and then I will let James back in. And this is highly important. I remember when we first came to the new office, when you'd first moved in, the coffee machine played an extremely important place in the culture. Is it still the same?
We have an upgraded coffee machine. Lots of companies run on coffee. NuQuantum likes coffee as an entity, and some folks are really passionate about it. So they would not be satisfied with mediocre coffee. So we've had to upgrade our grinder and machine game a little bit. We've also got a reasonable quality beans to cup machine, so you can just press the button and it'll produce you a cup of coffee if you're in a rush. Some folks need access to this really expensive and esoteric equipment to do their work. Some folks, they're fueled on coffee. Some our theorists and our mathematicians don't need fancy capital equipment, but we can still ensure their productivity as a function of giving everybody decent coffee.
Well, we have our pull quote for the episode there. NuQuantum likes coffee. That's perfect. So thank you for the marketing there. Before we move off the team and the kind of leadership topic, how have additions like Roland Akra changed the strategic direction of the business? And he was ex-Cisco CTO.
Cisco CTO. So super experienced guy. I mean, so we've had a team of 2, but we've now got 3 folks on our strategic advisory board, or SAB. So we've got Roland and we've got Bob Suter. They've been with us for a little while. Both super, super significant, but with really kind of complementary views. So we've really valued and appreciate their contribution to the business. We've recently, in the last month, added a 3rd card to this little set of cards that we're holding. So we've managed to get a guy called Richard Moulds. And I declare long-standing connection with Richard. So I started when I was starting my career in cryptographic hardware in Cambridge 26 years ago now. I joined what was then Encipher, founded by Alex van Summeren, I think within a week of Richard, who joined as head of marketing and product. So I worked with Richard for a long time in what was Encipher. Our careers then, by coincidence, we both left cryptography and entered quantum worlds. So myself with NuQuantum, Richard ended up as the general manager for the Amazon Bracket service, the service which offers quantum computing as a service. So set that service up. So really significant role and a really significant thing for Amazon. And we've now managed to get some access to Richard to join the strategic advisory board. And I've been working with him on a bunch of stuff. So the strategic advisory board is a really powerful entity, and it's got even better as a function of adding Richard to Roland and Bob.
This has been great, Ed. So as we just start to wrap the episode up, thinking about the next 12 months, let's say you've got all of this funding, you've got the plans. What are the big things that you're going to be targeting, both, I guess, on the tech side and in terms of the company's growth?
We've just launched the whole campaign around recruitment. So there's some of these really specialist skills that we need in a niche domain called AMO physics. So there's a big campaign up to try and find AMO physicists, world-class AMO physicists. So if anybody listening knows any, then put them in touch with us, go to NuQuantum, look at the careers page. There's a whole bunch of positions open. Money also in terms of progressing technical work. So proving the performance of some of these systems that we talked about, the qubit photon interface, to prove its performance as a function of the number of photons that it can collect as a percentage, to support the roadmap for the quantum networking unit with things like integrated photonic chips that promise even lower loss and even higher switching speed, which are the kind of things you need in a system like this. And the expansion of not just the technical teams, but the team I'm in, the commercial team. We've been pretty lean. I've now got 2 fantastic product managers. We've got some business development. We've got marketing. But just very recently, there's a job out for head of marketing and comms at NuQuantum. So again, if anybody listening to the podcast is brilliant at marketing and has some experience in the kind of technology that we're developing, we'd love to hear from you. Yeah, so technical work in terms of metrics, and then recruitment of some very specialist skills, and then expansion of, for example, my commercial team.
So I guess our final question is just getting some of your wisdom, really. So for people listening to this, we have the privilege of talking to many people that work in very nascent fields. That seems to be a very Cambridge pastime. So what advice would you give to people working in complex scientific domains? How do they go about building credibility and traction?
Okay, so I think my wisdom is a bit strong, but I'll have a go. I think there's something about not being hypnotized by your own technology. So I think you need to kind of keep a clear head, and ultimately you've got to be convinced that you're solving hard technical problems, science problems, engineering problems. You've really got to be confident that the solution to those problems has business value. You've got to be able to connect, you've got to join the dots up, and you've got to be able to connect back to a market. You've got to have some clearer view about what set of folks are we solving these problems for. Before you start thinking about product, you've got to think about what capability do we need to assemble? What's the kind of shape of the solution that's needed, and test that. And then you earn the right to start thinking about how is that going to manifest in a product and in a product roadmap. You can propose a solution to a problem, and you can get lots of really warm feedback. You can rock up and test your proposition. The cryptographic world I used to work in, banks were our natural kind of customer base. And you have a solution to a problem, you kind of pitch it to 10 big banks that you've heard of, and they all loved it. They all say, I really like this solution. Oh, I can see how useful this is. This is great. You must keep me informed about this. And what you learn is that those warm words are misleading. That unless, again, I'm pitching something to a bank, unless the bank sees that what you're offering, whether it's a product or service, whatever the hell it is, that they need it so badly that there's, again, this business need that I can either get some competitive advantage from this thing, or I can defend myself against some competitive risk, or maybe I can comply with some legislation that I must do. Unless you've got that urgency, you're never going to get your line in their spreadsheet of how they spend all their money. You're going to be below the waterline, which is come back next quarter, come back next year. Your proposition needs to be something that flips 2 rows in the spreadsheet around. So somebody that was funded isn't funded, and the thing that you're proposing is funded. So I think a sense of urgency is my magic tool. That is the scalpel, I think, when as a startup or some business, you're testing propositions. You've really got to be honest with yourself about that sense of urgency.
That's really good advice. I guess it's customer insight, right? Understanding your customer's problem, and as you say, connecting the dots to demonstrate you solve those problems. I mean, what a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's very much appreciated.
My absolute pleasure.
Today's show was produced by Joe Donaghy of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.
If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.